What's up everybody, I'm Seth Fowler and today we're taking a look at the sneaker releases in the first half of February and whether I think each one of those releases is going to sit on shelves or sell out. Before we jump into things, I want to give a huge thank you to the sponsor of today's video, Squarespace. Whether you need a website, domain, or online store, make it with Squarespace. Starting things off on February 1st, we've got the women's Air Jordan 3 Explorer in gray and green. This is sort of a high top Air Jordan 3. It's not really something I've ever seen before. I've got to be honest, I'm not a fan. But I also got to acknowledge the fact that this isn't made for me. This is made for women. And maybe there's a lot of women out there who like this shoe. I know for a fact that my fiance doesn't like these shoes so much, and while this colorway isn't too crazy or too out there, I think the overall silhouette of the shoe is a little bit weird. And so for that reason, I think it's gonna sit. Next up, we've got a bunch of stuff from the Black History Month collection, or BHM collection, dropping, the first of which is the Air Jordan 1 Mid. This is a relatively simple black and white Air Jordan 1 Mid with sort of a patterned Nike swoosh. It's an interesting look overall, and I appreciate the fact that the color scheme is relatively simple, but with that being said, it is still a mid-top Air Jordan 1, and as of right now, those are not the most popular sneakers, so for that reason, I think the shoe is gonna sit. Following that up, we've got the BHM version of the Air Jordan 2, which comes dressed primarily in a black upper with a patterned heel counter. There is actually a pretty subtle pattern all over the black upper of the sneaker that's done in both gloss and in matte textures, and that's sort of how they differentiate between the different patterned areas. And as far as 2s go, I think it's a nice looking sneaker. However, with that being said, it is still a 2, and 2s don't do that well, so for that reason, I think it's gonna sit. Next up is the Kyrie 5 BHM, and I've got to be honest, the Kyrie 5 is probably one of the more popular BHM sneakers to drop because the Kyrie silhouette is very popular. This shoe comes with a primarily white upper with some patterning around the Nike swoosh and the heel of the sneaker. It also comes with a black outsole that's accented by some other colors as well. In my opinion, I think it's one of the better looking sneakers in the collection because I really love the patterning that's going on around the Nike swoosh and on the heel counter. Out of every BHM sneaker that we've talked about so far, I think this one has the greatest potential to sell, so for that reason, I'm gonna give it a sell. Right after that, we've got the Black History Month version of the PG3. This sneaker comes with a primarily gray upper, but it also has some pattern details as well. Because the PG3 is a newer silhouette, I think people will be a little bit more interested in it than if it was the PG2, but I still don't think that's enough for the sneaker to really move, so for that reason, I'm gonna give it a sit. We've also got a BHM colorway of the Westbrook 0.2s. When the first colorway of this sneaker dropped, it sold out pretty quickly, which was kind of surprising because Westbrooks have never really been that popular. That being said, I think everyone who wanted a Westbrook 0.2 probably has one by now because you can walk into stores and grab them, so I don't think this colorway is really going to move the needle on sales, so for that reason, I think it's probably going to sit. Following that up, we've got sort of a weird return of the Shox R4 in the OG colorway. These come in sort of a silver, black, and red colorway, and if you were a fan of the Shox, I guess you have another opportunity to buy these sneakers. I'm not 100% sure why this colorway or the Shox in general are retroing, but for whatever reason, it's happening, and I'm not totally sure if they're gonna sit or sell because there must be some demand that I just don't know about. But in my honest opinion, based on what we've seen with some other weird sort of retros, I think these shoes are probably going to sit. And then finally, rounding off February 1st, we've got two different colorways of the brand new Air Max 720. There's a women's colorway and a men's colorway of the sneaker. The women's comes in sort of like a light teal and the men's comes in sort of a dark purple. I actually went out and bought the sneaker early, so if you'd like to check out my thoughts on this shoe, make sure to click the link at the top of the screen. TLDR, it's dope, but it's not for everybody. Because the Air Max 720 is a brand new silhouette, I do think there's a high potential for this shoe to sell out. Moving on to February 2nd, we've got a very weird sneaker called the Nike VaporMax Ghoulies, I think. This is a gold and zebra shoe, which is already not a great combination, and then they put that on top of one of my least favorite midsoles and outsoles of all time, the VaporMax. In my opinion, this is a strong contender for my list of worst sneakers of the year, but honestly, so far this year we've had so many terrible sneakers that it might even be close to the bottom. I don't know. It's just a bad looking shoe. I don't really want to waste any more of your time talking about this sneaker, so let's just get it out of the way. It's a sit. It's not going to sell. Next is the very highly anticipated release of the LeBron 3 Super Bron. This colorway is a variant of a very popular PE that LeBron wore years ago that just never released. And people are genuinely stoked for this shoe. I know a lot of people who are so excited for it. LeBron retros have been busting onto the scene, and this is definitely going to be one of the more limited ones, so for that reason, it's definitely going to sell. After that, we've got the all-blue Air Jordan V JSP Lanie. This is an interesting variant of the Air Jordan 5 Lanie, which usually comes in more of a white colorway. That being said, I think it's a dope-looking sneaker, and I think the materials that they used on it, which looks like suede, actually looks pretty good. It is a very bold-looking shoe, and it probably won't be for everyone, but I do think there's enough hype around this sneaker that it's probably going to sell out. Next, we've got two colorways of Adidas's brand new silhouette, the LX Con. The shoe is releasing in a cloud white active blue and a clear brown active purple, and I think overall it's actually a really nice looking sneaker. I'm gonna try and grab whichever one of those colorways I can get. I do think the white colorway will probably be more popular, and I also think there's gonna be a lot of pairs available, but because it's a brand new silhouette and because it's a sneaker that I think a lot of people are excited for, I think there's actually a good chance that this shoe could sell out. And then finally, rounding off February 2nd, we've got two colorways of a highly anticipated collaboration, and that's the Bape Adidas Ultra Boost. As I'm sure you already know, this sneaker is gonna come in a green camo and a black camo, with the green camo probably being more popular. We saw two very similar colorways released a couple years ago on the NMD, and back then when the NMD was hot, these sneakers were going for like $1,000. I think because of the somewhat declining hype of the Ultra Boost, these sneakers probably won't command the same sort of resale price, but I do think they will go for probably $400 to $500. So obviously, I think these shoes are gonna sell. Moving on to February 5th, we've got the Airmax 270 Chinese New Year. This shoe comes in a primarily black upper with some red accents on the air bubble and on the sock liner of the shoe. In addition to that, you've also got Nike's 2019 Chinese New Year pattern on certain areas of the shoe. I'm not the biggest fan of the 270s, but I've gotta say, this shoe looks pretty solid. Chinese New Year packs aren't always the most popular, but because of the fact that this sneaker looks so good, and it's also on an extremely popular silhouette, I think this shoe will probably sell. Next up is the Nike Pegasus Turbo in the Chinese New Year colorway, and it's definitely a much more subtle take on this theme. You've got some black, you've got some red, you've got some orange. Overall, it's a very clean sneaker, but one that I don't think will catch a lot of people's attention. Out of all the Chinese New Year sneakers that Nike is dropping this year, this one is probably my favorite, and that's because I love the way it looks, and I also really like the Nike Pegasus Turbo. But I don't think a lot of people are really blown away by this sneaker, and I think there's a lot of other shoes that are dropping that will be much more popular, so for that reason, I think this shoe is gonna sit. Next is the Kyrie 5, also in the Chinese New Year colorway. Gotta be honest, even though this is a multicolor shoe, it's kind of boring. We've already seen so many similar colorways of the Kyrie 5, and it just released. So for that reason, I think people aren't even gonna give this shoe a second glance. I think it's probably gonna sit. Following that up, we've got the Air Jordan 33 Chinese New Year colorway, and again, kind of dull. It's pretty much just a black Air Jordan 33 with some of that 2019 Chinese New Year coloring on the tongue. And that's it. I don't know, I don't think it's a bad looking colorway, but I just don't think people are interested in it. So for that reason, I'm gonna give it a sit. And then we've got a completely different take on the Chinese New Year pack with the Nike Air Max 98 Chinese New Year's. This shoe totally came out of left field. It doesn't match any of the other Chinese New Year Nike sneakers dropping on the same day. It's almost like a what the sneaker. It combines like crocodile print and horsehair and then some sort of Chinese pattern, and it's just so out there and so different. I don't know what to think. I know for a fact that a lot of people are really looking forward to this shoe, and I know that's partly because of the hype, because I'm pretty sure this sneaker is gonna be limited. I don't think it looks bad. It's definitely not for me. It's not something I would wear every day, but I'd probably buy it just for the review. I think by this point it's obvious, because of the hype, this sneaker will definitely sell. And then, finally rounding off February 5th, we've got the Air Jordan 12 Chinese New Year. This shoe has a very similar black and white colorway to the Wings Air Jordan 12s that dropped about a year ago. However, similar to but different than the Wings Air Jordan 12s, you can actually rip off the black fabric on the upper of the sneaker to reveal that 2019 Nike Chinese New Year print. It's a cool concept. The more you wear your sneakers, the more interesting they'll get. It's not a new concept, but it's definitely an interesting take on an Air Jordan 12. That being said, I don't think this shoe is going to be very limited, and based on what I'm seeing with pre-release prices, I think resale might hover around retail. But because of the clean colorway and the overall novelty of the sneaker, I think it'll probably sell out. But before I continue on with the list, I want to talk about today's sponsor, Squarespace. Squarespace has these excellent website templates that allow you to easily create a very powerful online presence. There's a huge amount of website templates available for pretty much any situation. Whether you're working on your side gig or your main job, Squarespace has you covered. One of my favorite things about Squarespace's all-in-one platform is that there's never anything to upgrade, install, or patch. Ever. And if you do end up having a question, Squarespace has award-winning 24-hour customer service that will definitely help you out. To get things started, Squarespace makes it extremely easy to set up your own domain, and if you already have a domain, they make it very easy to transfer that domain as well. And for all you sneaker sellers out there, Squarespace makes it extremely easy to set up an online store. So head over to squarespace.com to start your free trial, and when you're ready to launch that, head on over to squarespace.com/Seth Fowler for 10% off your first website or domain. But now, let's get back to the sneakers. Moving on to February February 6th, we've got the Westbrook 0.2 in a very plain black and white colorway. I really don't have anything to say about this sneaker. If you like the Westbrook 0.2 and you were holding out for that one super plain colorway, this is the one for you. But in my opinion, the original appeal of the 0.2 is that crazy out there, almost what the colorway, and this shoe doesn't have any of that. So in my opinion, I think it's gonna sit. Moving on to February 7th, it finally looks like we're getting the release of the Game of Thrones Ultra Boosts. As of right now, there are two colorways slated for release, and that's the House of Targaryen and the Night Watch colorways. I've talked about these sneakers a bunch already. You guys know that I really like the way these shoes look. I love the Ultra Boost. I've heard that these Ultra Boosts are probably gonna be GRs, but even with that, I still think they're gonna sell. And then rounding off the 7th, we've got another pushed back release, and that's the release of the OffWhite Airmax 90s. These shoes are coming in the desert ore and black colorways and are actually rumored to be the last Off-White Nike release. I don't really know if that's true. I haven't really seen any other Off-White sneakers slated for release later in the year, so it's possible, but who knows? Both of these shoes look great. I like the tan colorway, but I think I prefer the black colorway because it's more wearable. And as I'm sure you know, Off-White sneakers are limited and hyped, so they're definitely gonna sell. Moving on to February 9th, we've got an all-star themed release of the Air Jordan 9 in the UNC colorway. This is a pretty simple and definitely clean white and navy blue Air Jordan 9. To be honest though, there's nothing really special about this sneaker other than the fact that it's supposedly an all-star weekend themed shoe. A lot of people I've heard from really do like the look of this sneaker, but aren't really sure if they're gonna spend the money on it. And I actually think, even though I just talked to some of my friends about it, a lot of people feel the exact same way, so for that reason, I think they're gonna sit. And then rounding off the 9th, we've got another shoe that got pushed back, the Adidas ZX40 4D. Again, I've already talked about this sneaker a bunch. I think it's an awesome looking shoe. It's out there. It's got 4D technology, which means it's definitely gonna be hyped. Expect a retail price probably over at least $300 because of the fact that it's got the 4D tech. And I actually think the design is a perfect mix of a little bit of crazy and some really nice colors to make it an incredible shoe. As we've seen with all the other 4D sneakers, this shoe is definitely gonna sell. Moving on to February 12th, we've got a very interesting high-top version of the Air Max 720 called the Saturn, and apparently it's releasing for All-Star Weekend. Even though this is a weird-looking shoe, I don't hate it. I definitely won't buy it, I don't want it, but the black and yellow colorway and even the overall shape isn't terrible. In my opinion, unless this shoe is extremely limited, I don't think people will buy it, and I don't think it's gonna be extremely limited, so I think it's gonna sit. Moving on to Valentine's Day, February 14th, we've got the Nike Air Foamposite 1 in the floral colorway. So my thoughts on this sneaker are mixed. I think it's a really nice looking colorway, but I just don't love foams anymore, and I don't think a lot of people love foams either. However, I am pretty sure that it's gonna be an All-Star Weekend release, and as we've seen with the very limited All-Star Weekend foam releases over the last couple of years, it's probably going to be hyped. And I can only imagine if this floral foam released 5 to 10 years ago, people would be going nuts. So because I think this shoe is actually a pretty decent colorway, and also because I think it's probably going to be limited, I think the shoe is gonna sell. Following that up, we've got another popular release with the women's Air Jordan 1 UNC patent leather. Unfortunately, it has been confirmed that this shoe is only going to release in women's sizes, but as a lot of you guys know, women's sizes go up to about a size 10.5 in men's. So if you're a somewhat small footer like myself, I'm a size 9, you could actually grab a pair to rock. I don't really like patent leather Air Jordan 1s because I don't like the way that they crease. However, this colorway is so hot, I mean, it's kind of a must cop. But if you're watching this video, you're probably at least a little bit tuned into sneaker culture, and if you are, then you've definitely heard about this shoe and you definitely know how hyped it's gonna be. So expect it to be very limited, expect it to be very difficult to get, and expect it to sell out. And then rounding off the 14th, we've got the release of the Air Jordan 33 Travis Scott. I don't know what's going on with this month, but like every big shoe that's releasing was pushed back from last month or last year. This of course is one of those sneakers. It was supposed to release at the end of January. It didn't for whatever reason, and now it's releasing around All-Star Weekend, which actually kind of makes sense. This Travis Scott Air Jordan 33 comes in a primarily olive upper with some brown leather hits around the heel. Of course, you've got some hidden and not so hidden Cactus Jack branding, which really sets the shoe off. What's interesting about this collaboration is that everything that Travis Scott has done with Jordan Brand so far has been insanely popular. And so I think Jordan Brand is trying to use Travis Scott to kind of hype up the Air Jordan 33, which I guess makes sense. Even though this is a performance-based Air Jordan 33, it probably will be limited, and you can expect to see people wearing this off the court. And as you guys probably already know, limited sneakers and collaboration sneakers are usually hype sneakers, so expect this shoe to sell out. And then finally moving to the last day that we're going to cover in this video, February 15th. The first shoe dropping is the Nike Element React 87 in the Royal Tint colorway. This shoe is a pretty clean light blue Element 87. However, even though it is a pretty clean colorway of the shoe, we have kind of been inundated with Element 87 colorways, so I think people are almost over the silhouette. So because of that, I think the shoe is probably going to sit. And then finally, we've got the Air Jordan 1 Turbo Green. This is one of the more anticipated Air Jordan 1 colorways to drop this month. It comes with some really clean teal suede detailing, which I think looks great. It also has some really nice white tumbled leather accents, and I think the overall color scheme of the shoe is fire. But they decided to add some text on the bottom part of the midfoot of the shoe, and we just saw that on the previous Air Jordan 1 to release like last weekend. It almost feels like they're trying to bite off the off-white theme, and I just don't think it's a good look. I would have much preferred this shoe without the text. I think it's a great looking sneaker. That being said, I don't think the text ruins it. I'm definitely going to try and grab this shoe if I can, and I think a lot of other people are going to try as well. So for that reason, I think it's going to sell. But that pretty much wraps up all the notable releases dropping in the first half of February. I would love to know your thoughts on this list and which shoes you're looking forward to most, so make sure to leave those comments in the comment section down below. Once again, huge thank you to the sponsor of today's video, Squarespace. Head over to squarespace.com to start your free trial, and when you're ready to launch, head on over to squarespace.com/Seth Fowler for 10% off your first website or domain. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Please make sure to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, subscribe down below if you haven't yet, and I'll see you all in the next one.